Do you want to stay up to date with the messiest drama on the internet? Or what about those crazy viral challenges? Then be sure to tune in to TMZ Verified, the podcast. I'm Wild.
I'm Steph.
And each week we're either breaking down the spicy viral stories or we're hanging out with the most popular influencers around. Tana Mojo is in the building.
I don't even know if they're hating. They're probably just telling the truth, but we love the haters too.
Sophia Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk, but let's be real with each other, you know?
Bryce Hall is here, y'all. Make some noise, people.
I'm single, by the way.
Right.
So if you like viral drama, influencer culture, and just overall hot messiness, check out new episodes of TMZ Verified every Thursday right here on Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by JLL. Get an insider view into the world of commercial real estate with JLL's podcast, Trends and Insights, the Future of Commercial Real Estate. Whether you're curious about making cities more sustainable, the evolution of office space, or AI opportunities, this podcast will help keep you a step ahead. Tune in for candid conversations with business leaders about the biggest trends impacting how we live, work, and play. Subscribe to Trends and Insights now at jll.com/podcast.
Today's episode, we're going to talk about sharpening the saw. Enjoy. Welcome to the Age of Jeremy. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. I am your host of this amazing, amazing show. And again, this is a show about all the things that I do in my business that I'm learning along the way in life, and my journey to death, I suppose, would be the best way to put it. But if you're new to this podcast, I'm the CEO of a company called Age of Radio that I co-founded with Coach JV. You can check out Coach JV at all the social medias at Coach JV _. And he is the CEO of a company we own called 3D Warrior Academy, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer. And we just had a meet and greet this last week that went amazing. There was over 100 people there, and we signed some people up for our private coaching program. If you don't know about the 3-2 Warrior Academy, there is a link in the episode description and in Coach JV's and my bio that will get you a 7-day free trial. Inside of there's Coach JV's revolutionary 120-day challenge, my business essential classes. We have crypto courses. We have other premium classes that cost a little bit more to get into once you're inside. But again, 7-day free trial. And then there is a monthly fee for it. And then there's upgrades inside of the academy as well. And you also get access to our private Discord where there's all kinds of amazing crypto conversations. And if you're not part of Discord, you should get a Discord and be on Discord and have fun in Discord and learn about Discord, because social media is absolutely one of the greatest places to meet and connect with people, as long as you're putting in good quality time into it, if that's something that you want. If not, that's okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about those things today as we talk about sharpening the saw and what specifically that is. But before we do that, make sure you follow me on all the social media platforms at Age of Jeremy, and on Twitter at Age of Jeremy Q, and on Threads at Age of Jeremy. And on Threads, once I get to 500 people, I'm going to do a giveaway. I don't know what that giveaway is yet, so this is probably why people aren't jumping over to that Instagram Threads. But I have about 105 followers now on Instagram Threads. So I would love to see you there, but they're good followers, and that's actually what matters more than quantity. So I'm not 100% sure why I am doing 500 people as the number to get to when I actually share on there, because I personally actually really, really enjoyed it and am getting better at that. But we do have a lot of stuff on our plate that is consuming my life. And unfortunately, that is just what it has to be when you are building businesses and you're doing things that's going to change the world. There is a joke out there that says entrepreneurs give up 40 hours a week of their time to be free to work 80 hours a week. And again, no one ever built the world, except for, I guess, God, if you believe in creation, in 7 days. But Rome, the stuff that humans can do, wasn't built in a day and sometimes take a lot of energy and a lot of effort, as long as that is your goal. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because there is a true thing with burnout, and I experience it frequently, just because I traditionally work at least 10 hours a day, if not 12 or 13 or 14 hours. And I'm not saying that people should do that. It's just I uh, took on a lot of stuff, not really knowing what people were going to expect of the things that I wanted. And one, and then two, there are lots of aspirations that I have on in the world. So I've been spending a lot of time in my tarot readings and my human design, figuring out what are the things that are the most important to move the things forward. And that is where I'm working to spend a lot of my energy and time now, so that we can focus on the things that are going to actually change the world and the resources that we need to change that world. But because there is this burnout, and if you don't know what burnout is, or you think that it's not a real thing, it is a real thing. And we have to get rid of some of that stigma around it, because people don't think that burnout exists. But everybody has a capacity of when they can work. My cap is probably close to 70 or 80 hours a week. Once it gets over that 80 hours a week, that is when I can get really, really exhausted. Or if I'm working out too hard and not eating properly and have the proper nutrition, then it can get big. But occupational burnout is essentially a feeling of chronic work-related stress with symptoms characterized by feelings of energy depletion, or exhaustion. And for me, one of the ones that I get a lot is anxiety. And that anxiety exists because I'm starting to realize it's because different tasks and goals are spread out between different systems, and getting them all in one space and looking at all of those tasks in one place and trying to knock them down, so those tasks aren't kind of like gripping at you saying, oh, you need to do me, and then trying to find out time to do it. So let me break it down a little bit about scheduling. I'm opening up Outlook on my calendar real quick. And I'm going to talk about something specifically, just because I think that this week that it really woke up. It really dawned on me a little bit more about, for two things happened to me this week that made me feel good, but then got me really stressed out. But if I look on here, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I just have 8 hours of meetings tomorrow alone on Monday. So that's 8. And then we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So within the first 2 days, I have 14 hours of meetings, which means that means if I'm only going to work 16 hours those days, I only have about 2 hours to do actual work and eat in between those time frames. And then on Wednesday, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, another 8 hours of meetings. So I have 8 hours of meetings almost every single day up until Thursday. So that's the reason why it takes a lot of time to get the things done that we need to get done. Because then on Wednesday and then on Thursday, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 hours of meetings. And then on Friday, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of meetings. So that means almost 40 hours of meetings exist inside of the week. And that means that there is no way to count the time in which it takes to do the work. And that's where exhaustion comes in for me, because if I could, I would just work on the stuff that I need to work on so that I could get it done. And then I don't have to effing worry about it anymore. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And that is what is getting me exhausted, because there is just not enough time in the day to count how many meetings that there are. So that being said, I am going to try to free up a lot of that time to get the stuff done that we need to get done. And then that's where we can start moving forward and the things that we need. Now, some of those, they don't really last, like they don't last the full time. So I can cut them if we need to, but it's a good point inside of some of them to kind of like, okay, we need to get this and we need to get this moving along as quickly as possible. So that being said, so burnout exists, and that's a feeling of like, okay, there's not enough time to do anything, because that does not include any of the other stuff that I am doing to build like Age of Radio or to build any of those things. So that's why I think that 60 hours a week is a pretty good place, or 70 hours a week is a good place. And then to try to cut some of that time down is going to be the goal, because that is just getting a little bit ridiculous and out of hand. And so that is where I'm trying to get to. But anyways, point of this podcast is to talk about burnout. So burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed, feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's jobs, or feeling of negativity or cynicism. And so what happened to me was, because we did have our meet and greet, which was enjoyable this weekend. Prior to that, I was getting a little bit stressed out and frustrated from all the time being spent in the things that we are working on. And so what I did was Friday night, I played a video game for only about 2 hours. And that 2 hours of just playing that video game, it was Final Fantasy 16, created some revitalization of how I felt about the stuff that I was doing. Okay. And which got me thinking a little bit more of, what are the things that really replenish us? Because I mean, if these things, the meetings I don't like, because they're just, some of them aren't even productive as I would like them to be, because people spend too much time talking on them. People go off topic. And if we can get to the point and get off of those things in like 15, 20 minutes, then we can get going and we can get back to doing work, because there's lots of work that actually needs to get done. So if that time needs to be longer during the day, that's fine. But what are the things that replenish your energy and your heart and your soul? And that's what I want to talk about today. And so there is a fantastic book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've talked about this topic on the podcast again, but I just wanted to reiterate it because there's going to be new listeners coming on. This is now on YouTube, so you can watch these or listen to these podcasts on YouTube. And I think that sharpening the saw is really important. So sharpening the saw, it's a term that was coined by Stephen R. Covey, the author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it refers to the habit of maintaining, and so there's inside of, so the sharpening the saw itself, it refers to the habit of maintaining and improving yourself in 4 specific dimensions. And that's the physical dimension, the social, emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So by sharpening the saw, you can enhance your productivity, creativity, and well-being. So some examples of the sharpening the saw in each dimension. So I'm going to give some basic examples, and then I'm going to go talk about what kind of I do inside of those, and the ones that I notice that really benefit me is those moments of enjoyment in certain things. So let me talk about them. So the 4 areas are physical, social, mental, and spiritual. Okay. So in the physical, when he talks about this in the book, he talks about exercising regularly. He talks about eating healthy, getting enough sleep, and managing stress. So the 2 that help me the most in this one are the sleep and then the exercising regularly. And we could put meditation in this, but we're going to put that meditation somewhere else. So exercising regularly is super important to me. If I do not get to work out at the times that I like to work out, I get very, very grumpy, very, very stressed out. The problem is that sometimes I go too hard when I work out, or I work out too much, and then that can cause another type of problem. But the point is that that part is a good part. That helps me relieve a lot of the stress throughout the day by making sure that I get that workout in. The second one that I do that's really important is the sleep. I noticed, and I've mentioned this on some of my social medias. So if you don't follow me on social media, check me out at Age of Jeremy, wherever you get social media. And so the point is that when I monitor my sleep and it drops below that 7 hours and 15 minutes, or that between that 7 and 7.5 hours, the 7 hours and over is actually my sweet spot. I've noticed that when I get that 8 or 8.5, I don't have the same type of production, unless that 8 hours of sleep gets me up earlier in the day, then I'm a little bit more productive. But if I get up around between 6:30 and 7 every day, if I get between 7.5 and 8 hours and 15 minutes, then I'm pretty good. And so what I do to monitor that is I use Samsung Health, and essentially in Samsung Health, it monitors most of my sleep. So like, for example, this one I haven't put in here. Let me update those. So it asked me if I was asleep between 1:20 a.m. on Sunday and 8:12 a.m. on Sunday, which was about 6 hours and 50 minutes. That is probably not, that's not 100% accurate. It didn't clip the beacon. Oops, actually, I hit the wrong button here. Let me see. That didn't clip the actual amount that I went to sleep, but it got up around the time that I specifically got up. So that needs to be adjusted. So you can go in and adjust it. But essentially, like if I look at this, so like this month, right? If I go into Samsung Health and I can look at the overall data, in the last 7 days, I only got 6 hours and 15 minutes of sleep a day. That's not enough for me. So that means that this week I need to do a better job getting more sleep, because over the last month, I've only got 7 hours and 6 minutes. And I want that to be between 7.5 hours and 8 hours, which means I need to start sleeping more and resting more to get that number up. And that helps me be way more productive and helps me manage that stress better that comes with working a lot. So that's the one. So those are the things that I do. One of the other ones that I know that I need to do better, and I recommend this for you, is getting the good nutrition. I have been eating not as well as I would like to. And so me trying to do that this week is going to be helpful, beneficial. And then overeating is always a big problem with me, just because with diabetics, you don't have the full, it's Similan. I can't remember what the actual, what the actual name is for it inside of your body that also gets produced from your pancreas, I think. And it's a hormone, I think, or I can't think of the exact word, but it makes you feel full. And so that's missing in diabetics. So a lot of times they overeat, and that's something that I tend to sometimes do. And then I don't feel as strong. So knowing what my calorie is and knowing that that's okay, then I can be good. So I had to have some Gatorade Zero, to make sure you're hydrated. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is the social and emotional. This is one that really hit me yesterday, because after we did the one-on-one, which I was exhausted after, I can only imagine how CJV felt with his leg. But I was exhausted afterward because it had been just a really rough week. During the week, I wrote a bunch of documents. I wrote about 30 some pages of documents up. I had I passed a Arizona life insurance exam. And so there was just a lot of stuff that was going on during that time last week. And so I got a little bit exhausted by the end of it. But then after, when we were done and I was, hanging out with Brenda and Dustin and Jana and Jackie and May and John, or CJV, and who else was there? And Josh. And when we were hanging out, I just felt better. And we didn't go and do anything, but just having that social, emotional connection, building positive relationships, being able to express yourself, right? Those are the things that help me. And so the examples that he gives, that he kind of gives in the book, are building positive relationships, expressing empathy, seeking synergy with people, developing intrinsic security. Because when we have those relationships with people, it allows us to process our feelings and be able to share those with other people, or to share that joy, or to have advice, or whatever the case is. And so while I get a lot of that on social media and through text messaging and in the virtual world, just being around the people was really, really nice. Same thing today. I had lunch with my mother before I worked on the podcast, and then recorded this podcast. And this is being recorded on July 16th, 2023. You'll hear it on July 18th, 2023. And so being in this specific situation, where I have a lot going on, just having the 2 hours with my mom really just kind of revitalized me, even though I was frustrated during that time and I need to work on that. But that frustration comes from just having an over workload of stuff that's happening, and just time constantly going by when you're like, I can't catch up. And the reason why you can't catch up are because there's too many meetings. And that's why I'm not a very big fan of meetings or meeting with people. I think that you could cut a lot of it down, or give it a lot of time, knowing that, the other people have stuff that they need to actually physically do. And so that's just better time management, I suppose. I guess to some extent it's time management. But anyway, so that being said, then the other thing that has come up is so sorry, not the other thing that's come up, but then the other one that they mentioned is mental health. And so mental health includes like visualizing goals, writing journals, reading books, learning new skills. And so if I can spend time just 30 minutes a day or 40 minutes a day reading, then it's just so much better for the mental health. And those things help you to prevent burnout. And again, all of these things are designed to help you prevent burnout. And the reason why it's called sharpening the saw is because the sharper your saw is, if you're trying to cut down a tree, essentially, and they talk about this in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you're trying to cut down a tree and the saw is dull, then the tree is not going to fall. And so the idea is that if you're keeping these things sharp and you're focusing on these things throughout the week, it'll be better to manage those stresses and those things that are hitting you during the workday. And then after mental health, there's spiritual. Oh, so for the mental health, reading a book is a really big one. One of the things that I don't mind, I like to do is journaling. And that's like getting out the thoughts. A lot of people look at journaling as goals planning and I don't know, gratitude. I think that it's great to talk about your day and to flow with your feelings, because those things essentially are like as if you're opening them up to someone else. And what that does is it lets you really talk about and think about what is happening and what's going on with you. And you get a lot more emotionally mature when you're doing that, and you can solve a lot of problems. But if you don't do that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and I understand that. And so mental is really good. Learning new skills is one that I wish that I could do more. I love learning new skills, and not even just learning new skills that you can apply them in work, but just learning new skills. That is one of the things that revitalizes me a lot. The perfect example of this is when I left to go do the one on the meet and greet on Saturday. I was just in a shitty mood because I didn't want to do it, but I listened to a podcast. I learned a lot from that podcast that stimulated my brain because it was a psychology podcast. So there was academics involved, and that's something that helps revitalize me. And so by the time I got there, I was just in this really good mood, felt really good because I got to think along the way. And I've just noticed that about myself, that if I don't get academic stimulation, then that's the kind of stimulation that I want in my brain that helps me be better and think better and do better and feel, revitalized essentially. And so that's mental, sharpening the saw. And then the last one is spiritual. So clarifying values, committing to principles, studying scriptures, meditating or praying. And so for me, there's the chapter 25 verse in the Lotus Sutra that you chant as part of Tendai to open you up to being a bodhisattva, and the Heart Sutra, which is the vows of a bodhisattva inside of it. And so when you are chanting those, not only are you being able to calm your mind because you're chanting, right? So you're only thinking of the chanting, but then you're also pulling the bodhisattva out of you and pulling Buddha to you at the same time. And so those are really powerful things that help. And that helped a lot last week. And I was doing a lot of it just to make sure that I was keeping my mind clean for taking the test on Wednesday and all of that. And now that some of those things are over and we can move a little bit faster with some of the items, it's just about getting some of these things off my plate and closing them out because they've just been sitting there for so long and not being able to do them because I'm exhausted from meetings. And the thing about the meetings, like I said, it's just frustrating because they're not always beneficial. That's just my opinion. But anyway, so I'm working to get better at that. So spiritual, that works for me. Meditation is in this spiritual category. I love meditating because it's a time to just sit and to be and to not think and to breathe and be at peace that moment in time. And so that not only helps me with, having emotional irregularities inside of myself from the borderline personality disorder, but it also helps me just with stopping everything from going so fast, not just my mind from racing, faster thoughts or racing thoughts, but just to say, hey, it's okay. You're right here. All of these things are going to be there again, and you can pick up on them later. They don't have to be solved right now. And so that's a really big one. So that being said, those are the things that they talk a lot about inside of Sharpening the Saw inside of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So to recap, the idea is sharpening the saw is to get you to do a better job at keeping yourself, I guess, restful through those main areas, the physical, the social, the mental, and the spiritual. And the idea is that if you do those, if you add those things in the week to make sure that you spend time doing them, then you will be a much better productive person in all areas of your life and all of your relationships if you are making time for those 4 things. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So I hope that you enjoyed it. And then also too, make sure that you follow on Age of Jeremy on YouTube, because these are go up there now. And then I'm trying to do some more flowy type of conversation, talking about the news, things that are happening culturally, video games, things like that. It's called Lo-Fi from the Couch. And so those are going to be coming out periodically, but those won't be on the YouTube. You'll have to get those by subscribing to the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. So I appreciate all of you. Remember, be thankful, grateful, and kind. Let me know. Snapchat me or tweet me or go on Threads and message me and let me know some of the things that you do for the physical, the social, the mental, and the spiritual to help you stay revitalized throughout the week. So again, be thankful, grateful, and kind, and we'll talk with you next time. Bye. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed that podcast. Again, my name is Jeremy Quintanilla. Follow me on the social medias at Age of Jeremy. If you like this podcast, please rate it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If it allows you to rate it, give it 5 stars. That gets it in front of most people. I would really, really appreciate that. Also, like and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. The opening song is Brave Faces Everyone by a band called Spanish Love Songs. The closing song is Illuminati Hotties by a band called by the band Illuminati Hotties. The song is called Threatening Each Other Recapitalism. I like using Neumann mics. I like using Zoom L8, which is my soundboard. I use Waves plugins, and I use Steinberg's Cubase. Again, remember, be thankful, grateful, and kind. We'll talk with you next time. Bye.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.